Today is Wednesday, and we're going to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Yesterday we looked at chapter 12, and we looked at how God gave us spiritual gifts. Tomorrow we're going to look at how to use those spiritual gifts. But today we're going to look more at the attitude at which, if you have spiritual gifts, you should use them in. In Corinth, they had great spiritual gifts. They even had good doctrine in Corinth. What they didn't have was love. And that's the way that you're supposed to exercise your spiritual gift, is in love. And Paul's going to make the point, look, yeah, you've got great gifts. Yeah, you've got good doctrine. But you're missing the most important thing. He says, though I speak with the tongues of men. When he says the tongues of men, he's talking about languages of men, meaning languages. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. And of angels. Now, he's really speaking hypothetically here because there's no evidence anywhere in Scripture that they have this special angelic language that we could learn. He says, but if I don't have love, I have become as a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. What this is there were pagan religions that they were in, and they were in before they became Christians, where they would have ecstatic speeches and all kinds of crazy things that they would say, and then that would be followed by a loud clang or a gash. And he says, you know what? If you don't have love, you might as well go back to your old religion. You might as well go back to what you were doing before. If you're missing love, it's the main thing. He says in verse 2, and though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge and have all faith so that I can remove mountains, and have not charity, I am nothing. He even goes to the better gifts. In this whole progression here, he says there are some gifts that are better than others. In that they were trying to have tongues. They loved tongues. That was their thing in Corinth. And he's going to say tomorrow, as we look at, like, this is not the greatest gift, you know? And it's going to actually fade away, which we're going to look at today. He says, I could have prophecy and the gift of understanding Scripture, knowledge, which really will edify the church. But if I do that without love, man, I am missing it. Even if I gave my body to be burned, if that were a good thing, or, if that were something I were doing for God, but I did without love, it's nothing. And then he describes what love is in verse 4. Love suffers long and is kind. It does not envy. It does not parade itself. Is not puffed up. It does not behave itself rudely. Does not speak its own. Is not provoked. Thinks no evil. Does not judge or does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth. Bears all things. Believes all things. Hopes all things. Endures all things. This is actually the most poetic thing that Paul ever wrote. It is incredible. In fact, I don't think I've done very many weddings where I haven't quoted this passage. It's a great model for marriage. And it's something I hope that you'll look through today as you have your devotions. Look at 4 through 7. It tells us what love is all about. But in this passage, it's telling the Corinthians, look, this is what you're missing. You're missing love. You're missing everything by missing love. In verse 8, he says, love never fails. Never fails. If you truly have love, it's not going to wear out over a little bit of time, for your brother or for your sister. But on the contrary, what will fail, he says? But where there are prophecies, they will fail. That word literally means to be abolished. Where there are tongues, they will cease. Now, there's a different word used when he describes tongues and prophecies. And then he says knowledge, it will vanish away. Same thing, be abolished. He uses different words because they're going to be going away at different times. Okay? When? Well, this tongues ceasing has the idea of not someone coming in and throwing it away, but by itself passing away, which is exactly what happened with tongues. Around the time of AD 95, when Revelation was completed, tongues stopped. And you can look at the history of the church and find out there was no tongues after that until long about the 18th century. And the Azusa revival, and this thing got going. A woman there started this thing, and they started doing tongues again. But it did cease. Now, when does it say that these other things are going to cease? He says, when that which is perfect is come. Now, what is that which is perfect? He says, when I see face to face, now I know in part, but when I understand fully. When did that happen? Well, the truth is it hasn't happened yet. Do you understand God fully right now? Do you see Him face to face right now? Or are there still some things you don't quite get? Now, if you're like me, I don't get it all. I don't always understand everything. And the truth is that happens the moment you meet Jesus face to face. So we still have prophecy, preaching of the Word. We still have knowledge and people who understand Scripture and disseminate Scripture. That won't need to be happening in heaven. The sad thing is I'll be jobless in heaven. Now, I'm here with this music conference with a couple of worship leaders. They're going to have a job in heaven, okay? They'll still be leading worship in heaven. But what I do, you're going to understand perfectly when you get to heaven, and so will I. And I'll be better at it if I had the job. But this isn't something that we'll need in heaven, prophecy and knowledge, because people will understand. But tongues will have passed away, which it did. And we're going to look tomorrow at some of the reasons why. As you read this today, I hope that you're gonna look at this and you're gonna ask yourself, do I have love? And am I exercising love in my local church, in my home, with my mate, with my kids, with my friends? Are you showing the love of Christ, the kind of love that is kind? Action. Love is always action. Love is not like, oh, I have this great feeling and I love you. No, love is action. It's kind. It's not rude. It's not envious. It doesn't seek its own. It seeks to build up other believers. Well, God bless you and have a great day. We'll see you later.